I think that their whole operation, well, which is now poorly financed because they're not earning real money anymore, is survival.
To Harry, there's no title, there's no Duke and Duchess of Sussex, it's just Harry and Meghan. Are we reaching a point where Charles could actually take their titles away if he feels that the drip, drip, drip damage of the way they've been exploiting them for personal gain becomes too much to sustain for them?
That Charles will not grant Harry a face-to-face this summer. And of course, that July countdown to Invictus would have been the perfect opportunity.
Prince Harry finally regrets what he said?
She's a publicity junkie. She's someone who once a week thinks, I haven't been in the news, what can I do to get into the news?
We're two people who have caused intense damage to the reputation of the royal family and the institution of the monarchy.
Harry doesn't regret what he said. He regrets the consequences. Right now, Tom Bower and Piers Morgan are revealing just how serious those consequences have become. The latest figures involving Meghan have just been released, and they're even worse than many expected. As Tom Bower and Piers Morgan break down the situation, the picture they paint is stark and deeply damaging.
But I just remember that Harry and Meghan, they were 2 years apart on their timeline. I mean, Tom, you're the authority on this. They were 2 years apart in the same interview about where this
And
supposed to
Oprah
happen.
Winfrey totally failed to pick up on
She
it.
did, yeah.
She just let them spew their lies.
You know all about them. What's going to happen here? How does Charles manage?
They can only profit and survive by inventing smears and inventing lies.
Let's start with what's really driving Harry's actions right now. It's not reconciliation and it's not family, it's money. Harry and Meghan reportedly need around $6 million a year just to maintain their lifestyle, covering expenses such as their mansion, security, staff, and travel. According to Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, their income has slowed significantly, and the steady cash flow they once relied on is no longer there.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost of living for them is enormous. I mean, the security alone, which they feel they need, must cost between $1.5 and $2 million a year. The upkeep of their home and their staff must cost at least another $2 million. And then there's the rest. So I think that they're running out of money. I mean, I've conservatively put their annual expenditure at $3 million. But for that, they'd have to earn $4 or $5 million.
The Netflix content deal, reportedly worth around $100 million, has come to an end. Critics such as Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that the couple's biggest audience came when their projects focused on the royal family, and that interest faded once there were no more personal stories to tell. Spotify is gone, and other business ventures have also struggled. Netflix even entered a commercial partnership with Meghan's as Ever brand, an unusual move for a streaming company, but the collaboration ultimately failed to deliver the expected results. According to their critics, venture after venture has fallen short of expectations.
And they're running out of money because they run out of people to interest to buy their story. And that's why I think in the end they'll be desperate to come back to Britain to revalidate and reconcile with the royal family.
As Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue, Harry's speaking career has lost much of its appeal. They question whether organizations are still willing to pay speaking fees that have reportedly reached as high as $50,000. In their view, many potential clients are unlikely to spend that kind of money to hear someone they see as repeatedly discussing personal grievances while living an exceptionally privileged life. They also point out that, outside of his position as Chief Impact Officer at BetterUp, Harry has few high-profile professional roles, leading them to question the long-term demand for his public appearances.
Harry would love to be able to do California and be a big star there and have status in Britain as well. Well, of course, Tom Bower's right. That's exactly what Harry wants. He wants the freedom and the privacy and the independence of life in the United States, and he wants to be a top posh royal in the UK. I'm so sorry, Harry, you can't have it both ways. He talks about his lack of status in Britain and his diminishing status in the United States. He says that it tells me, Mark, that Harry is frustrated.
According to Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, Harry's role at BetterUp reportedly earns him a substantial salary, despite what they describe as a limited public workload. They also claim that Meghan has been encouraging him to pursue more active sources of income. While Meghan has continued working on her as Ever brand, They argue that Harry's public schedule appears relatively quiet. They point to recent public appearances, such as attending a polo match as a spectator, as evidence that he has few major professional commitments. They further claim that some wealthy supporters have become less willing to provide the level of assistance they once did and suggest that reductions in staff reflect broader financial pressures on the couple's operation.
I don't see how they couldn't be losing money. Like, their lifestyle is extremely expensive, and there's just what's coming in as ever. Sales cannot be that good.
They're
what
not.
money is Harry still making, right? And even if he has some dowry or whatever from his mom still, or whatever, some sort of money that's still there, an allowance, some royal allowance or whatever, I still don't believe it's enough to sustain that lifestyle that they need with their security and the mansion and their lifestyle. It's just like they're not getting freebies anymore. I'm sure they still got to pay for all their meals.
They need $6 million a year. $6 million a year.
As Tom Bower and Piers Morgan continue to argue, Harry walked away from a life that provided him with a home, security, transportation, travel, and the public support that came with being a working royal. In their view, his responsibilities were relatively straightforward: attending engagements, meeting people, and representing the monarchy. They point to the couple's departure from the UK, often referred to as the Freedom Flight, as a moment when they appeared eager to leave behind what they described as a restrictive environment. Now, the commentators argue, with public interest in California no longer as intense as it once was, that decision appears far less appealing. As they see it, the grass isn't always greener, especially if you've already burned the field you left behind.
And Harry, here's the point. We're not really interested in your truth. You've been saying it for the last 2-3 years. Your version of what you think happened. And yeah, I did say Meghan was becoming a royal rock star, and I'm pleased you quote me in there because it shows that I was, like the rest of the British media, very positive about your new bride until your mutual behaviour became hypocritical and ridiculous after the...
But if you think the financial challenges are the biggest problem, wait until you see the latest polling numbers. Tom Bower and Piers Morgan have been discussing them in detail, and they argue that the figures are even worse than they expected. According to the polling they cited, Meghan's U.S. favorability rating reportedly fell from 37% to 29% over a 3-month period, while her unfavorable rating increased by 5 percentage points. They contend that her net favorability has narrowed to just a small positive margin, suggesting she is close to slipping into negative territory in her home country.
So he revealed Meghan Markle's popularity among Americans fell in the first 3 months of 2026. It is likely to draw attention from Meghan's team as they plan their future marketing strategy. So this is Q1 2026. Meghan was liked by 29% and disliked by 27% of respondents in a poll of around 1,300 Americans conducted by YouGov over the first 3 months of 2026, giving her a net rating of +2. The methodology, based on YouGov's rolling rating system, differs from traditional polling in that responses are collected continuously throughout the year and presented in quarterly data sets, providing a more stable measure of sentiment.
According to the figures cited by Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, Meghan's overall popularity metric reportedly fell by an estimated 87% over a 3-month period. They described the decline as dramatic and argued that it reflected a significant shift in public sentiment.
These figures represent a sharp drop from the third quarter of 2025, when Meghan was liked by 37% and disliked by 22% of respondents, giving her a net approval rating of +15. That equates to a 13-point decline over two.
According to the figures cited by Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, the As Ever website's monthly traffic reportedly declined from around 108,000 visitors in December to approximately 61,000 in April, a drop of about 43%, despite Meghan's continued promotion of the brand. They argue that if this downward trend continues, the brand could face even greater challenges in maintaining its online audience over the coming months.
There have been 392,144 visitors from January to May, but short of the 650,000 in inventory items in January. Total visits were a little over 1 million, with Britain, Canada, Australia, and India among the countries. And this, again, quite critical, because we did have products that did sell out, like she reintroduced the chocolates again, Those did sell out. But so she's introduced some new products since that information was revealed. However, at the same time, I don't know if it was enough to actually help any of this. I really don't think. I would imagine she's still sitting on, at the very least, 600,000+ items of inventory. That's a lot. There's also a bounce rate that's tracked, which means people who went to the website, looked at it, and then bounced off immediately. The rate was 34%, which I think is fairly high.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan also point to reports of as ever products appearing on resale platforms, with some listings reportedly priced at around $50. They highlight customer complaints about certain products, including candles that allegedly arrived without wicks, making them unusable. They also note that the brand's Instagram following has reportedly fallen below 800,000. According to the commentators, the brand's products, such as jam, candles, and honey, are relatively simple items marketed as premium lifestyle goods. They argue that the branding alone has not been enough to sustain strong demand. They also discuss speculation circulating online about the resale listings, with some people suggesting they may have been intended to create an impression of scarcity after the initial launch reportedly sold out quickly. However, there is no public evidence to support that claim, and it remains speculation.
She's constantly putting out, oh, I've got this great new 4-pack of candles, and you get free matches. Woo! Wow! And these crazy bundles that don't save you a penny.
Yeah, which are now all on eBay.
Who is putting those on eBay?
Oh, no.
What do you think that is? Isn't that weird?
I don't know. I think that's people maybe got them and thought, oh, this is a piece of shit. So,
or somebody else got it for them maybe, and they thought they could make a buck, and I bet they don't sell for shit.
21, 22, 49. Somebody's trying to sell them for last one, $49.99.
For what?
The Duo gift box sets.
Oh, the Duo. So that should...
One story, in particular, sparked a strong reaction from Tom Bower, Piers Morgan, and their audiences. They discussed reports claiming that Meghan sent approximately $300 worth of as ever products to a social media supporter. According to those reports, online users later identified the recipient as someone who had previously posted offensive comments about Catherine, Princess of Wales, during her cancer treatment, as well as remarks about King Charles III cancer diagnosis. The commentators argued that, if the reports are accurate, sending a gift to someone associated with those posts would be difficult to reconcile with public calls for healing and reconciliation within the royal family. The allegation has been widely debated online, and the circumstances surrounding it remain contested.
To me,
Meghan Markle has now formally endorsed one of the biggest online trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is the care package to the notorious JTB. And trust me, Markle knows exactly what this man is all about. So we now have a ludicrous situation. Look, she's even using the royal cipher. We have a ludicrous situation where a former member of the royal family who claims to be all about online welfare is now backing one of the biggest internet trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is unsustainable.
According to Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, King Charles III has decided not to meet Prince Harry face-to-face during his expected visit this summer. They argue that this decision reflects a breakdown in trust rather than scheduling or logistics. In their view, the relationship has reached a point where private conversations are no longer considered possible without concerns about confidentiality, leading them to conclude that the door to reconciliation remains firmly closed for now.
That Charles will not grant Harry a face-to-face this summer. And of course, that July countdown to Invictus would have been the perfect opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it's my understanding that's why Harry has come, as I've mentioned the other reasons he misses the UK. I also think he's happier without Meghan. I hate to say that, but I honestly...
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan pointed to last year's meeting between King Charles III and Prince Harry at Clarence House as a turning point in their relationship. They noted that the meeting lasted about 40 minutes and described it as an opportunity for a father undergoing cancer treatment to see his estranged son. The commentators also repeated reports that security precautions were taken before Harry was admitted, arguing that this reflected the level of mistrust that already existed between the two sides. According to Bower and Morgan, any remaining trust deteriorated further after the meeting. They argue that Harry's subsequent public comments about his father, along with his high-profile trip to Ukraine, gave the impression that a deeply personal family moment had quickly become part of a broader public relations narrative. That interpretation reflects the commentators' views and remains a matter of public debate.
That Charles is feeling stung by what happened straight after Clarence House. It was the opposite of what you should do. Don't forget, JJ, we were reading in the Sun newspaper full details of what happened at Clarence House days after. And what do we get from the Sussex public relations machine, which is ruthless and never sleeps? An angry response. Angry because the truth got out. So there were details about how Harry was very surprised at how formal Clarence House was, the experience. I should Coco. You're not a member of the family anymore. You're not a VIP. And also about the exchange of gifts. None of this should.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that King Charles III went out of his way to make Meghan feel welcome in the royal family. They point to his decision to walk her down the aisle at her wedding after her father was unable to attend, describing it as a heartfelt gesture of support. In their view, that goodwill was later overshadowed by a series of public interviews, documentaries, and Prince Harry's memoir, all of which revealed deeply personal family matters. They contend that these events caused lasting damage to the relationship and believe King Charles no longer has the trust needed to rebuild it. According to the commentators, that is why they see the prospect of reconciliation as increasingly unlikely.
Done.
But she doesn't let her own family in, don't forget. She only had her mother.
Yeah.
She likes to kill. She likes to destroy. That's what she's doing. And what annoyed me to the same time that this was going ahead was little Lilliput. And I couldn't bear that either because she wanted to show off. Just before we saw the pictures, she wanted to show off, Mummy is so lovely. And this little kid was sitting down with something wrong with her foot, but I couldn't judge what it was. And she had to watch her mother. As we know, she is not allowed to turn around so that we see her. So she was just there with her mother sort of standing there, look at me, I'm just so wonderful.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that this was the moment King Charles III ultimately chose to prioritize Prince William's position. In their view, William, as the future king, represents the monarchy's long-term stability, and Charles recognizes the importance of protecting that future. They contend that every effort to accommodate Harry has, in their opinion, created additional challenges for William and the institution he will one day lead. According to Bower and Morgan, that realization prompted Charles to draw a firm line and step back from further attempts to mend the relationship under the current circumstances.
Stopped.
It means that King Charles has finally chosen William's side.
You nailed it. That's it. That is the microphone drop of the day. It's all about William. And it's the fact that Charles is finally listening to his son, as he should. And the reason why he should listen to William is because William has been very loyal since day one. And William hasn't had an easy life, by the way. He also, if anyone cares to remember, lost his mother in tragic circumstances. It wasn't just Harry that's got the post-traumatic grief. William as well. But does he make a fuss about it? No. Private grief. Private healing.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan also point to the changes made at Frogmore Cottage as a symbolic message from Prince William. They note that the property reportedly underwent extensive renovations and argue that the decision signaled a clear break from the past. In their view, the public attention surrounding the changes reinforced the impression that Harry and Meghan would not be returning to Frogmore as their UK base. The commentators interpret this as William's way of sending a firm message that, for the foreseeable future, there was no path back to their previous role within the royal family.
Back.
The couple's £2.4 million renovations. You'll remember how controversial these were on Frogmore Cottage within the Windsor estate. Remember Frogmore Cottage, which they renovated at vast expense to British taxpayers before being shamed into paying back the money. Well, all of those renovations are to be bulldozed. And this is very symbolic. King Charles is conceding here that Prince William is right about the fact that the Sussexes simply can never return to to the United Kingdom in any form, can never have any royal role again. Their home, the place that they wanted to keep as some sort of base in the United Kingdom paid for by us, is going to go back to being multiple cottages because simply it is not fit for them to.
According to Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, Prince Harry has been frustrated by what they describe as a double standard in the way members of the royal family are treated regarding royal residences. They point to arrangements involving other royals, including Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson, Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, arguing that Harry has been treated differently. However, the commentators also argue that Harry's situation is fundamentally different. They contend that, unlike other members of the family, Harry and Meghan publicly discussed private family matters through high-profile interviews, documentaries, and Prince Harry's memoir. They also note reports that Harry was offered accommodation at Buckingham Palace and St. James's Palace during visits to the UK, but allegedly chose to stay elsewhere instead. In Bower and Morgan's view, those decisions further weakened the trust between Harry and the royal family.
Instead, I think the penny is starting to drop for Charles, and clearly the other factor is that William's going to become king, and I think that Charles is starting to realise that actually my son is going to inherit the Harry problem. And so I'm going to have his back on this one. Because the problem you've got, JJ, is that the more Charles indulges Harry and feeds the monster of his ego, and of course with Harry, it's Harry and Meghan, isn't it? They're a package.
Yeah.
It's growing problems for the future, because you see the more power, the more influence Harry has within royal circles, that develops into a competing second royal court, a royal court based in California, and that'll be William's worst nightmare.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan question why Prince Harry remains so concerned about Frogmore Cottage after reportedly not using it as a residence for several years. They note that Harry has said he was willing to pay rent and even fund further improvements to the property at his own expense. They also cite reports claiming that both Harry and Meghan have been frustrated by what they see as unequal treatment compared with other members of the royal family. According to the commentators, those frustrations are likely to lead to further public responses, whether through interviews, media briefings, or articles responding to ongoing royal developments. They argue that this pattern has become a recurring cycle of reconciliation followed by renewed criticism. Bower and Morgan also discuss Harry's past remarks suggesting he has additional stories about the royal family that have yet to be published. They contend that readers are increasingly looking for independently verifiable evidence to support such claims. In their view, without documentation or corroboration, any future allegations are likely to be met with greater public skepticism.
It's one of the big aspects of Paula Frolish's scoop. It's about how distressed Charles has been at the monetization of their royal links and the titles. And he's right. And that's why, they've completely messed up. They've been very self-destructive. And in the absence of a face-to-face for Harry and Charles this summer, where does that leave the relationship? Charles is no spring chicken. He's battling cancer. In a sense, Harry's running out of time. This is a dark moment. And then Meghan loses her popularity in the United States. If you tried to have some optimism for the couple, where would you start? Where is the good news story for that?
According to Tom Bower and Piers Morgan, Prince Harry's recent expressions of regret are not about what he said, but about the consequences that followed. They argue that the loss of public support, strained family relationships, and financial pressures, not remorse, are what have prompted his change in tone. The commentators maintain that, had circumstances been different, Harry would likely have continued criticizing the royal family. They also dismiss reports suggesting he hoped Prince William would eventually need his support during a difficult period, arguing that such expectations reflected ongoing rivalry rather than a genuine desire for reconciliation. In their view, the trust between the brothers has been so deeply damaged that any prospect of repairing the relationship remains remote.
Harry finally wants reconciliation with William. He regrets what he said. He believes his relationship with Prince William has reached another low point. And so, yes, royal experts are claiming that he regrets his past criticisms of the royals and wants to get reconnected with his estranged brother. Obviously, as we know, with Spare and the Netflix doc, he said some pretty awful stuff. But yes, this expert, Dan Wakeford, says Harry wants a reconciliation. He regrets the things he said in the book, the documentary, and doing that again is off the table. Yeah, right. What's heartbreaking is he kind of has hoped that William would stumble a little and reach out and need him. I don't know if I believe this. He's got no avenue to communicate with him. However, the expert claimed it cannot happen as Harry reportedly no longer even has William's phone number. The source claims Harry believes William has played a significant role in deepening the divide.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that the royal family has significantly limited the information Prince Harry and Meghan have access to, leaving them with little insight into internal royal affairs. In their view, that access was once one of the couple's greatest assets, and they contend that its loss has reduced public interest in further revelations. The commentators also point to Harry's past remarks describing Prince William as trapped by royal life and comparing the monarchy to the Truman Show. They question why Harry has since expressed a desire to rebuild ties with the institution he once criticized. According to Bower and Morgan, the answer is practical rather than philosophical. They argue that royal life also provided security, official residences, and financial stability. In their view, life outside the monarchy has proved far more challenging than Harry may have anticipated.
You can't maintain that lifestyle without a serious staff. They've let them all go. They've all turned on them. And yeah, it's no wonder that Harry would have regret now, realizing, crap, what have I done? It's also just his brother. I've always had empathy and just sadness for the fact that these two got separated. It is heartbreaking all over a girl. Like, that's just the dumbest thing in the world.
At some point, it should have clicked with him that she's completely estranged from her family. Yes. And now he's completely estranged from his family. But I have to say, let me just point out, I don't lay all this at Meghan's door, because the truth is Harry is...
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that the future of Harry and Meghan's royal status could become even more uncertain under a reign led by Prince William. They speculate that William would be unlikely to expand working royal roles to include Harry or his family, believing that the divisions within the royal family are too deep to overcome. In their view, time is running out for any meaningful reconciliation. The commentators also draw attention to Meghan's estrangement from her father, Thomas Markle. They note reports that he has faced serious health challenges and has publicly expressed a desire to meet his grandchildren and build a relationship with Prince Harry. Bower and Morgan argue that the continued lack of contact stands in contrast to Meghan's public messages about compassion and forgiveness. They maintain that this contradiction has become one of the most enduring criticisms of her public image and believe it is an issue many observers are unlikely to forget.
The father having the heart attack and at the last minute bailing out. But she deliberately announced she did not want her father to lead her down the aisle in St. George's Chapel months before it happened. So that shows you exactly how she manipulated the father to, in the end, selling his pictures to a paparazzi and giving interviews. She manipulated the hostility between herself and Harry and the father, and it quite shocked.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan also reference comments attributed to royal biographer Andrew Morton, who has claimed that Prince Harry closely follows media coverage about himself. They argue that one of Harry's greatest frustrations is the growing public focus on Prince William's children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, who now represent the future of the monarchy and naturally attract significant attention. The commentators further point to reports that Harry did not attend Peter Phillips's wedding, despite the long-standing connection between the cousins. They argue that William and Catherine's presence at the event underscored Harry's increasing distance from the wider royal family. In their view, concerns that Harry and Meghan's attendance could have overshadowed the bride and groom may have influenced the situation, although no official reason has been confirmed. Bower and Morgan also note that other members of the royal family, including Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, were reportedly present, interpreting this as further evidence of Harry's diminished standing within the family. According to the commentators, the combination of strained relationships, lost trust, and shifting public attention has left Harry in a far different position from the one he once occupied as one of the monarchy's most popular figures.
Again. Meghan and her spare handbag Harry have been snubbed again. The gruesome twosome were notable absentees from Harry's first cousin's wedding at the weekend. They were cut from the guest list. Now, members of the royal family were seen here, as you can see, beaming. This was during the wedding of Peter Phillips and NHS nurse Harriet Spurling in England. I mean, she looked absolutely gorgeous. They're the royals all entering. So we saw Princess Catherine there, Prince William, there was King Charles, Queen Camilla was there, and Princess Anne, all in attendance. Even, would you believe, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, who haven't been seen since their slobby father, and that's putting it lightly, slobby father Andrew's alleged involvement with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein came to light. Even they were invited.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that Harry and Meghan's recent public appearances have reflected a decline in their international profile. They point to reports that some events attracted smaller crowds than expected and claim that invitations to several high-profile occasions have not materialized. In their view, the couple's past criticism of the royal family and the UK has made it more difficult to maintain the level of public and institutional support they once enjoyed. The commentators contrast this with Prince William's public image. They cite examples of him attending local community events and supporting his children at sporting activities, arguing that his relatively low-key approach has strengthened his reputation. According to Bower and Morgan, William's ability to interact comfortably with the public reflects the trust and goodwill he has built over many years. They also criticize what they describe as Harry and Meghan's heavy security arrangements, arguing that the level of protection often appears excessive compared with that of many other well-known public figures. That assessment reflects their opinion and remains a subject of debate. Finally, Bower and Morgan discuss the Invictus Games, claiming the event has faced increasing financial and sponsorship challenges. They cite reports of rising costs, changes in funding, and concerns expressed by some participants about the direction of the organization. The commentators argue that the Games have become too closely associated with Harry and Meghan rather than remaining focused primarily on the injured and wounded service personnel they were created to support. These claims, however, remain contested, and the Invictus Games Foundation continues to present the event as a successful international competition dedicated to supporting veterans and service members.
And of course, there are strong rumours that Boeing, who are a major sponsor of the Games, don't intend to help finance these Games next year. So he's got a financial problem and a political problem and a religious problem. And how does he cope with it? Well, Harry, unfortunately for him, is a person who's least well.
Tom Bower and Piers Morgan argue that Prince Harry's planned visit to the UK in connection with the Invictus Games has prompted renewed criticism. They question whether every aspect of the trip is necessary for the charity's mission and suggest that the focus should remain on the veterans the organization was created to support. The commentators also point to a widely shared online sentiment. When someone chooses to leave a role, they should also accept the loss of the privileges that came with it. In their view, Harry made a conscious decision to step away from royal duties, and the consequences of that choice were always inevitable. Bower and Morgan conclude that Harry's recent expressions of regret reflect dissatisfaction with the outcome rather than remorse over his past actions. They argue that the breakdown in trust, the loss of royal privileges, and the distance from the royal family have created long-term consequences that will be difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to watch the next video for more commentary and updates on the latest developments surrounding the royal family.